Claire Pearsall is still with me. She's a former Conservative government advisor. Also joined today because Peter Caldwell's on his well-deserved holidays. You can't get that man off air over the last few weeks. But James Matthewson is valiantly standing in, former Labour Party spokesman. Good afternoon to you, James.
Afternoon, Julia.
I feel like I should start the booing and hissing now because everyone seems to get jolly cross with you whenever you're on the show.
Outrageous, isn't it?
I know.
Outrageous.
It's a very, very nice chat. Be nice, everybody. Be nice. But they're going to be giving their tuppence worth on Prime Minister's questions, which has just started in the House of Commons. Keir Starmer has congratulated Scotland on the football. He's also expressed his thoughts and prayers or whatever for families affected by flooding, not perhaps by the sprinkling of snow we had in London this morning. We're all going to survive that. But I'm sure an awful lot of people who work from home will, of course, be leaving early from their sofa because of the snow. We're going to be talking more about the threats in terms of our Britain's inability to defend itself today. We're also going to be talking more about China. Also going to be joined by Sharon Davies, the Olympic swimmer, about her new campaign, her new basically women's sports union to basically tackle all those sports that are completely and utterly ignoring the Supreme Court ruling, making it very clear that you can't have men who pretend or think that they're women in women's sports. She wants to get them out, so we have a fair playing field for women once again. We're going to be talking to her. We're also going to be talking about the Epstein files. The Senate and Congress have, and the House of Representatives have voted for the Epstein files to be released in full once that bill is signed by Donald Trump. It should happen. Will it happen, or why didn't Donald Trump just agree to it anyway? He said he was going to do it before he was in office. And why is he defending the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia over the murder of a journalist, Khashoggi? Well, we'll talk about all of that coming up. Various MPs already asking questions on the floor of the PMQs. We'll go live to PMQs when we hear Kemi Badenoch stand up. Claire, first of all, what do you think Kemi Badenoch's going to ask about?
I think we're going to see her asking a bit more about that U-turn on the income tax increase in the budget. I think that
it's going to be budget.
Always
budget. But what do you expect, James?
Yeah, I think it would be stupid for her not to go on the economy. It would be the obvious thing right now, and especially teeing up for the budget. But yeah. I do think that's probably their strongest area right now to go on.
Yeah, and they're desperate for it to be about the budget and be about the economy and not about immigration, which they know they're certainly legal immigration not very strong on. Certainly, we've got David Lamb, the Deputy Prime Minister, and Rachel Reeves. Actually, I think Kemi Badenoch is just standing up right now. So let's go live to the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I associate our side of the House with the remarks the Prime Minister made about James Elliott? Can the Prime Minister tell us why his government is the first government in history to float increasing income tax rates only to then U-turn on it all after the actual budget?
Prime Minister. I'll inform you the budget's actually next week rather than after the budget. It's only got 1 week to go. But I can tell her it'll be a Labour budget, Mr. Speaker, with Labour values. That means we will concentrate on cutting NHS waiting lists, cutting debt and cutting the cost of living. And because of the decisions we've already made, inflation is down this morning. The Bank of England have upgraded growth. We've got a record £230 billion of investment into this country under this government.
Mr. Speaker, he says the budget is next week, but we read all about it in the papers. This is the first budget to unravel before it's even been delivered. The Chancellor's cluelessness, I'm afraid, is damaging the economy now. The Prime Minister needs to end this shambles. So can he confirm today that he won't break another promise by freezing income tax thresholds?
Mr. Speaker, the budget is 1 week today and we will lay out our plans. But what we won't do, Mr. Speaker, I've said what we will do in terms of protecting the NHS and public services. What we won't do is inflict austerity on the country as they did. It caused huge damage. What we won't do is inflict a borrowing spree like Liz Truss did, also inflicted and did huge damage. Mr. Speaker, have they learnt anything? She's apparently got a golden economic rule, I think. So it's a very important rule, this golden rule. That there's this £47 billion of cuts with no detail. No wonder the Institute of Government says they're on very shaky foundations. They haven't listened and they haven't learned.
Mr. Speaker, it is quite clear that they are going to freeze thresholds. We didn't get a clear answer from them, but this is really important. Because in her budget speech last year, the Chancellor said, and I quote, "I am keeping every single promise on tax that I made in our manifesto. So there will be no extension of the freeze in income tax and national insurance thresholds." Why was freezing thresholds a breach of the manifesto last year, but it isn't this year?
Mr. Speaker, every week she comes along and speculates and distorts. Last year, Mr. Speaker, last year they predicted recession. And what did we get? The fastest growing economy in the G7 in the first half of the year. They opposed NHS investment, and what do we get? 5 million extra appointments in the first year of a Labour government. They tried growing the economy with millions on NHS waiting lists, with our schools crumbling and holes in our road. It didn't work. What do they want to do now? Go back to the same failed experiment.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about speculation. The only people who've been speculating are his government every single day for the last 3 months. And he mentioned inflation in his last answer. Inflation has nearly doubled since they came into office. He wants a round of applause because it's come down a little bit. I will remind him that food inflation is up 4.9%. That is making life miserable for all of those people out there. But let's go back to thresholds, because this is important. When the Chancellor made that promise to unfreeze the thresholds, it wasn't an off-the-cuff comment. She said it on the floor of this House in her budget speech. That was a deliberate statement of government policy. So if she breaks such a clear promise, how can the public trust a word that she says next week?
Mr. Speaker, she talks about inflation. It went to 11% on that. 11%, and the country is still paying the price. Inflation is down this morning, wages are up, and we've had 5 interest rate cuts, and that's because our fiscal rules are ironclad. And the Leader of the Opposition and the party officers have no credibility on the economy. She was Treasury Minister during the worst decline in living standards on record. And she said that Liz Truss got the mini-budget 100% right. Not much room for flexibility there. 100%, that's pretty full marks, Mr. Speaker. She might want to tell us if that's still her position, 100% right for Liz Truss.
Mr. Speaker, I was Treasury Minister at the height of the pandemic. We cleaned up that mess. Maybe he could clean up some of his own mess. And I'm going to repeat what the Chancellor said, because it's quite clear that the whole front bench has forgotten. She said, "I have come to the conclusion that extending the threshold freeze would hurt working people. It would take more money out of their pay slips, and yet that's what they're planning to do next week." And all of this speculation is having real-world consequences. Just this morning, the UK chair of ExxonMobil said, and I quote, "The government needs to understand that the whole industrial base of the UK is at risk unless they wake up and realise the damage their economic policies are doing." Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us, is the loss of UK industry the price the country has to pay for having a clueless Chancellor?
Mr. Speaker, let me just say about ExxonMobil, it is a difficult time for the workforce there, and we must focus on supporting them. We've been meeting the company for over 6 months and explored every possible reasonable avenue. They've been facing losses for the last 5 years. It's best to do the detail before you chunter. And they're currently losing £1 million a week. But she talks about policy and approach. On energy policy, she follows reform. On the European Convention, she follows the man who wants her job. And when her shadow minister said we should deport people lawfully here to achieve cultural coherence, she pretended that it didn't happen. I could go on. She was the trade secretary that didn't sign any trade deals. Cheerleader for the mini-budget, cheerleader for open borders, and when they were crashing the economy, botching Brexit and running down the NHS, she was right at the centre. She hasn't got an ounce of credibility.
Mr. Speaker, on energy policy, what we are doing is listening to industry. What happened, I had a round table.
Mr. Slinger, please. We don't want to have to sling you out.
Mr. Speaker, just this morning, we heard from the chair of one of our largest energy companies. Last week, I had a roundtable with energy companies, and what they had to say about this Prime Minister and his energy secretary is unprintable. They are absolutely furious. Our oil and gas industry is dying, and he's standing there saying he had meetings. People out there are struggling, Mr. Speaker. The budget chaos is causing real anxiety. People aren't buying houses, businesses aren't hiring, and they are cancelling investment decisions. 2 weeks ago, the Chancellor called a ridiculous press conference to blame everyone else for her having to raise income tax. Then last week, she U-turned on her own U-turn. Instead, we can see they're planning to freeze income tax thresholds, something she said last year would be a breach of their manifesto. They are making it up as they go along. Doesn't the country deserve better than government by guesswork?
Mr. Speaker, either we renew our country with Labour or we go back to austerity 2.0 with reform of the Tories. They left waiting lists at record highs, almost 1 million more children in poverty, and they wrecked our public services. She comes here to talk down the country. We're turning the page. More NHS appointments, free breakfast clubs, free childcare, more homes and better public services. That's what we're fighting for, a Britain built for all.
Lord Hatton.
Well, that was a rather brisk and terse exchange between the Prime Minister over the 6 questions from Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the official opposition. Claire Pearsall is a former Conservative government advisor watching that, also alongside James Matthewson, former Labour Party spokesman. Let me come to you first, Claire. I mean, she was a bit wrong-footed at first, Kemi Badenoch, wasn't she? She said, this all happened after the budget. No, it's before the budget. Yeah. She's obviously just not quite on top of it. But when she was quoting Rachel Reeves on the thresholds, the so-called stealth taxes that aren't stealthy anymore, because we know about them. You moved into a higher tax bracket on your marginal income. That was pretty damning, wasn't it? And there wasn't, I don't think, any even attempt at an answer from the Prime Minister.
No, the Prime Minister said an awful lot of words in return. But Kemi Badenoch made the point that the Chancellor said last year at the budget that it would be a breach of manifesto to freeze those thresholds any further. So Kemi Badenoch has turned that around and said, this is what she said last year, so why is it not applying now for this budget? And she was a bit wrong-footed to begin with, but she recovered that sort of relatively quickly.
Do you think she laid a glove on him?
Not hugely. I think this is all just picking away ahead of a budget, so it's just adding to the pressure that they feel.
Yeah, and let's face it, James Matthewson, you're a former Labour Party spokesman. I know no longer even a member of the Labour Party, James. I'll make that clear to people. May become clear in our conversation as well. That ahead of a budget, we told you we wouldn't expect the Prime Minister or the Chancellor to give any information, apart from the fact, of course, as Kemi Badenoch pointed out, the only people who are speculating on the budget are actually the government themselves.
That's true. Kemi Badenoch, I just don't know what's going on there with they've got the pattern down now. They know that they need to stick to the same question for all of them, and they need to kind of have that through thread that runs through. But it just seems like she kind of goes off topic a bit through the middle, and she gets defensive and she doesn't keep it on the offence, and I don't know why that is.
It's sort of like those Netflix series that start really, really well, and then you're thinking, this should be in a 4-parter, not an 8-parter.
Exactly, yeah. She we saw it on the energy policy thing, for example. Starmer mentioned that, and she couldn't help herself. She had to be like, well, actually, what we're doing is, no. Yeah. You don't need to be talking about what you're doing. You're not in government.
Well, there was a point I thought the Speaker might. I mean, he usually puts something at tuppence worth in, doesn't he? So Lindsay Hoyle, all speakers do, during PMQs, and I'm here, look at me, know me. But it was interesting at one point when Keir Starmer asked a question of her, and the normal form is, this isn't, leader of the opposition questions, it's Prime Minister questions. But let's go back to that quote, because the key thing she was talking about was, basically, they've U-turned on income tax rises, there's chaos, there's too much speculation. As she said, this is government by guesswork, making it up as they go along. But that key quote from Rachel Reeves' budget last year, said on the floor of the House of Commons in a speech that had been gone through a million times, it wasn't an off-the-cuff remark in an interview. She said, Rachel Reeves, as quoted by Kemi Badenoch, I have come to the conclusion that extending the threshold freeze would hurt working people. Now, that was something the Tories had already done. It's been done by many a government in the past. She said, though, quoting Rachel Reeves, it will take more money out of their pay slips. given that everybody expects that the Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is going to next week, this time, almost exactly this time next week, basically extend those thresholds by another couple of years to 2030, then that is Labour admitting that they will take more money out of pay slips. And also, she said earlier, it was a manifesto promise that they wouldn't do that. So she's breaking a manifesto pledge.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be even that bothered about it, because they've already lost all credibility on things like that, let's be honest, on things they've said they wouldn't do, that they've ended up doing, on any kind of promise to kind of be fiscally responsible, then changing the fiscal rules every 5 minutes. Nobody seems to know what they are or what it means. I do think the strongest line by Kemi this time around is the government by guesswork.
Yeah.
Whoever came up with that in the lotto, in the leader of the opposition's office, will get, well, they certainly won't get a pay rise. That's politics, unfortunately, but they should get a bit of credibility.
They'll get a cream egg as a prize. But that's we love a bit of austerity. I mean, sort of austerity. Well, I say we don't love a bit of austerity. We love a little bit of alliteration, don't we? In these insults, but making it up as they go along. That is the general impression. Now, I mean, I think you were in the Labour Party, when they weren't in government. So one of the strongest impressions I do get is that there was a general view, well, the Tories are bad, evil people, they're incompetent, and also the civil service are working against them. That's been the view for the last few years. But when we're in, we'll have the civil service on side, we'll have the public sector unions on side. We're much more competent, and we're the good people, and it'll all be quite easy. It seems to me they've all been, including the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, quite shocked by how hard governing is.
Well, you just need to go back to what Keir Starmer promised in his leadership bid for the control of the party. And that is a million miles away, unrecognisable from what this government.
Give us some examples for those of us who've got lives.
I mean, he said he would maintain most of the policies that were in the 2019 manifesto.
Corbynista, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, none of them are there now.
Well, that's it. People always forget. Labour Party members thought they were electing a left-winger.
Yeah, 100%. It was about continuity. He wasn't about throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I think was the expression at the time. And it was about trying to keep some of those policies that, by the way, I maintain. And while people who don't like left-wing politics, of course, would say, oh, it's too ideological. Corbyn was too ideological. That's why we lost 2 general elections. However, having no ideology at all, which is where they are right now, having no indication what they stand for or represent, is even worse than that, in my opinion.
I couldn't agree with you more. I don't have an issue with anyone being ideological. It's just whether ideology is coherent and sane, which Corbyn's wasn't. Claire Pearsall, it is interesting. I mean, as James says, look, Labour have lost all credibility on this issue anyway, so it's almost kind of written in. I mean, Kemi Bain not made the point, but businesses aren't investing, they're not hiring people, they're not buying homes right now because they don't know what's going to happen to the market. I can always argue, I buy a home now rather than God knows what's going to happen in the future. Yeah. I mean, but consumers aren't spending, businesses aren't investing because it is a lot of the damage of this next budget already baked in.
I think what's more damaging is all of the speculation that we've had. And it's not just speculation from people like us. This has been the Chancellor of the Exchequer giving a random press conference early on a Monday morning, telling us that it's all going to be difficult, but it's also all going to be all right at the same time. Those two things can't be true. Yeah. So the markets don't have confidence. Therefore, consumers
and we saw the cost of government lending go up as a result.
Yeah, and it's all of those very complicated things. And what people actually look at is how much they're paying for milk, bread, butter, eggs in the supermarket, and they can see that increasing. Their confidence is low. They're not going to go and splash out so near to Christmas on anything. So therefore, you're going to have a downturn in the economy. So it's damaging before we've even got there.
I mean, part of the problem, James, isn't it? Our economy's been running on consumers just spending for many years. I remember when we were saying, oh, we need people to save more and spend less, but now they're going, no, for the God's sake, spend. But I mean, the reality is, when the Prime Minister comes back and saying, look, inflation's coming down. I mean, it's 3.6%, and as we know, food inflation is higher than that, and stuff, energy inflation and the like is coming down, interest rates coming down, and things like, but unemployment's also going up, wages aren't going up by the same amount. When he throws around these figures, it might sound good sometimes as a technicality. It's not what people are actually experiencing in their own lives.
No, and it's a lack of humanity. And look, I would never expect to be standing here saying that the Labour Party sounds less human than the Tories. But when you've got Kemi Badenoch. She had more passion in her voice. She had 10 times more passion in her voice when she said that food inflation, she got quite fiery with it. She said food inflation, the cost of living out there, people are suffering. I'm like, am I right? Am I watching the right thing here? I'm seeing a Tory with more human emotion than a Labour Prime Minister.
Well, you've got Shabana Mahmood being invited to join the Reform Party. I mean, we've had this hilarious tweet where the Reformer put out a picture of Shabana Mahmood in her bedroom with, Reform T-shirts, Reform flags and the like. And she's retweeted it saying, over my dead body.
And she thinks this kind of being aggressive and all of it. I tell you what it is, Julia. It's performative cruelty. That's what we're seeing from them. They're trying to dress up like they're the hard person. Shabana Mahmood wants to sound like she can strip jewellery. All this rhetoric of things that will never happen. They're not going to do that.
Even the Danes haven't done that.
But the very fact that they're letting people think they might, that's the whole point of it. And they want to try and sound like something that everybody knows they are not. And the only thing that happens then is you vote for the genuine article, which is Nigel Farage. If you don't like immigration, if you're anti-immigration generally, you're going to vote for Farage. You're not going to vote as the person dressing up as him.
Well, I mean, that is a very fair point. Here's the thing, though. I mean, I must ask you, just for your own political views. I mean, big conversation about getting rid of illegal migrants, cutting down the number of appeals, and people not being able to have the right to stay here indefinitely after just 5 years, up to 20 years. But also row over the last 24 hours about whether children born to illegal migrants here or failed asylum seekers, whether they'd be deported as well. And it seems to be rather obvious if the parents are thrown out, they would take their kids with them, unless we're talking about separating kids. Do you have an issue with that, or is that performative cruelty as well?
Yeah, of course I've got an issue with it. I've got an issue with the whole thing because I just don't like it, Julia. It's not my priority. It's not my priority.
Well, it's not your priority. It's a priority for an awful lot of people.
That's a priority of many people, of course it is. I recognise that. That's why we have a democracy and they can vote for what they want, but it is not my priority. I do not believe in...
Why do you think it's a bad thing for us to send people who have no right to be here, either arriving illegally or overstaying on their legal right to be here, sending them home?
We see examples of case studies every single day of people who get caught up in that, who should be given the right to be here. Asylum
when did we last see that? I haven't seen that.
Asylum is a right that's international, and that it should be recognised as such. If we're going to strip that away because we can't, I've said this before, it is a very pathetic thing for a government to say, we can't handle this, we can't manage this. Well, you need to be able to, I'm afraid. And it's exactly the same with the challenge of reform and the right and trying to challenge them. Stop aping them. Stop trying to copy them. They're doing that. They've got it down to a T. You need to do your thing, and you need to take the fight to them. When have we lost the fight from politics, Julia? You need to be able to take the fight and make
and you have a clear debate between two sides. But here's the thing, Claire Pearsall, I mean, your party, the Conservatives, have also been, basically, following along, trailing on the skirts of reform as well on this. But I mean, the thing is, I think most sane people in Labour have realised now that you can't make an argument for just having an open door policy.
And that's it. And it's how you present that to everybody. But I think the strangest thing has happened. The Conservative Party has moved ever rightward to chase reform. The Labour Party are also now moving ever right to prove that
I don't think they're moving right. I think the centre ground is we don't have open borders and anyone who wants to come in can stay.
They're moving. They are moving.
Hold on a minute, James.
They are moving to the right from where they were. And it's people like James is going to find that very difficult because he's coming into my sphere of politics and we almost agree on things.
Yeah, indeed. But James, this is the thing. I mean, it's not a controversial view to say we should have border controls and we shouldn't allow people with no right to be here to remain here. That's not controversial to most people in this country, whether left or right.
No, but also it's not to you, Julia, because that's your opinion, and I get it, and that's fine.
No, it's a fact that it's not. That's not a controversial view, and it wasn't a controversial view 20 years ago.
But that's not what we're just talking about.
But you're just saying that's right wing, and it's cruel, performative cruelty.
Well, as Claire's pointed out, it's about how you present these things. It's the language with which you talk about them. Every single person knows, every one of your viewers and listeners right now knows that the Labour Party at its core believes in migration as a concept, right? And whether you think, yes, of course.
What do you mean as a concept? Concepts.
It's not about...
Concepts don't matter. No, the reality. When you see, you can again, it's like being anti-immigration, pro-immigration. Most people in this country are opposed to illegal immigration and unlimited mass immigration. That's different from being opposed to immigration or migration as a concept.
But we know that these issues are complex, right? And we know that often
they are,
grouped together.
actually.
No, they are for a lot of people to grasp. I have the conversations with people every week and they don't know what they're on about, right? It's very difficult for people to wrap their head around the nuances of immigration and migration. What are students, where do students fall into it? Why are Eritrean students being targeted in County Durham and getting bottles thrown at them in the street when they've come here?
Don't want anything like that. But,
things like that. Why are they getting grouped in with it? But the problem is because of the rhetoric. That's the problem. Everybody knows what the Labour Party stands for at its core, and you can either vote for it or you can not, and not support it if you want. That's fine. But why are they pretending to be something else? As Claire says, they've all shifted to the right, and it leaves lots of people who have views to the left of politics, Julia. And,
you've got plenty of parties to choose from. There's Jezbollah and there's the Greens. They can have a great time. I'm going to have to leave it there because I'm way over time, James. I'm so sorry, my lovely. I've got to go to some calls. Want to go to some calls. James Matthewson, former Labour Party spokesman. Thank you very much. Just finally, Claire, it was a bit of a PMQs, even though actually quite interesting that someone's actually bothered to go back and read what Rachel Reeves said last year at her budget and realise that she is just so blatantly saying what I'm going to do next week is going to be a manifesto breach and will hurt working people.
Yeah, this is just a placeholder of PMQs. We're waiting for next week's PMQs, then the budget. Then it's all
PMQs on budget day is a complete waste of time. It really is.
We should cancel.
I'm not even sure we'll bother with it.